When compared to the typical Thursday evening, the Spencer mansion was remarkably quiet. His normally self-assured demeanor had been replaced with a far more gloomy one as Bill Spencer sat in the living room, which was only dimly lighted. Over the course of the previous hour, the contents of a glass of whiskey that had been partially consumed remained unfinished on the table next to him. He took a look about the lavish chamber, but when he did so tonight, the opulence that surrounded him turned out to be issy and empty. His thoughts were racing with everything from his tangled family ties to his newfound affections for Katie. It had been an eventful few weeks, and his thoughts were churning with this information. Whenever it came to matters of love, Bill was well aware that he had been his own worst adversary. He could not count the number of times that he had caused Katie pain. Everything was different for him while he was with Katie because he was used to being powerful and decisive, and he was used to controlling his world. Because he was terrified to confess that he needed her more than anything else, he had been putting up barriers for such a long time, reluctant to risk being vulnerable. Last night, however, Bill was exhausted. It was exhausting for him to continue to play the game of power and to maintain the facade. He picked up his phone, showed a little moment of hesitation, and then proceeded to dial a number that had been ingrained in his memory for a considerable amount of time. Katie? Hi, my name is Bill. Would you be able to come over? Because I need to talk to you. He took a deep breath and swallowed forcefully, his heart beating in a manner that was foreign to him. Despite the fact that he detested the sensation of vulnerability, he was aware of the significance of this. When the phone came in, Katie Logan was situated in the living room of her own home. Will, her son, was sitting back on the couch, completely engrossed in the book that he was reading. When she looked down at her phone and saw Bill's name flashing, her heart skipped a beat. Unless it was a matter of grave importance, Bill would not have asked for her presence in the first place. His voice, on the other hand, has a quality that she had never recognized before. It was almost as if he was lost. Katie let out a sigh as she quietly made her way into her bedroom and immediately shut the door behind her. There was a lot of history between her and Bill, both positive and negative. She loved him, and in many respects, she would continue to forever. However, she had been damaged far too many times by his impetuous decisions, his need to dominate, and his inability to recognize that his actions had ramifications that went beyond merely affecting commercial transactions. However, there was something about his tone tonight that made her heart feel like it was being pulled. The moment Katie made the decision that this was a talk that was worth having, she grabbed her coat. She called out to Will, informing him that she would be absent for a short period of time, but that she would be back in a short while. As she made her way through the empty streets of Los Angeles, she couldn't help but wonder what had driven Bill to suddenly feel the need to see her. Is he in a hard situation? Why did he feel a sense of regret? Even more crucial, is it even possible for her to assist him at this point? As soon as the butler opened the door, Katie experienced a peculiar feeling of déjà vu. This occurred as she arrived at Bill's mansion. On many occasions, she had traversed these corridors, at times filled with optimism, and at other times feeling utterly despondent. On the other hand, tonight there was a distinct change in the atmosphere. The moment she entered the room and saw Bill seated there, appearing diminutive, she was aware of it. "Bill?" Katie shouted out in a low voice as she moved forward. He raised his head, and Katie was able to observe the signs of exhaustion in his eyes. Bill Spencer had been many things to her, including ruthless, driven, charming, and sometimes irresponsible. Nonetheless, she had known him to be vulnerable. That was something fresh. "Thank you for coming, Katie," Bill replied, his voice lacking the forceful edge that is typically associated with his statement. He made a motion for her to take a seat on the couch that was just across from him. Katie maintained a close check on him. Your tone suggested that you were in need of someone. What exactly is going on? Bill was hesitant. He was well aware that he was taking a significant risk. It would be possible for him to dismiss this, change the subject, and build his defenses back up. But the reality was that he had no desire to do so. He could not continue to act as if he did not require her, suggesting that he could simply continue living his life in the same manner as he had in the past. Katie, do you ever get the feeling that you're just exhausted from everything? When Bill started, his voice was scratchy, comparable to the games and the power plays. In the event that you are alone yourself, none of it actually matters at all. Katie cocked her head to the side and looked at him. I'm curious, Bill, where did this come from? You are someone who thrives on power and control, and I have known you for many years. What has been altered? Bill had a sigh. While bending forward and resting his elbows on his knees, he ran his hand through his hair. Over the past few days, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Regarding us, regarding everything that I've lost, and regarding how I arrived at this position. The look of regret could be seen in his eyes as he glanced up at her. I came to the realization that I had spent my entire life trying to avoid the one thing that I required the most. Greetings, Katie. It is not the kind of love that is contingent on something exciting or reliant on a situation. Genuine and authentic affection. The twisting of Katie's heart happened. Due to the fact that she had been anticipating hearing these words from Bill for a considerable amount of time, she was at a loss for words when they finally arrived. There was a part of her that yearned to embrace him, to provide him with the solace that she could see he was in such desperate need of. In spite of this, a portion of her recalled the instances in which he had caused her pain, the broken promises, and the tears. When she finally spoke, her voice was hardly audible above a whisper. You're talking about us, she whispered. Bill gave a slight nod. That's right, Katie, I am. Many errors have been committed by me. There are more times than I can count that I have caused you pain, and each time I have vowed to myself that it will be the last time. Nevertheless, I always manage to find a way to mess it up. There was a little crack in his voice, and he looked aside, his eyes shining with excitement. However, I am exhausted, Katie. I'm sick of pretending that I don't require your presence, and that I don't long for the existence that we shared. When Katie looked into his eyes, she saw the honesty that he had, and it shattered her heart. She extended her hand and placed it on top of his shoulder. Bill, I am aware that you understand what you are saying, but you have made statements similar to this in the past. How am I supposed to know that this time it's different? Mr. Bill took a deep breath. Katie, I am at a loss for words to substantiate my claim. I am finished with the games, and that is all I can say about it. For the sake of you, Will, and myself, I feel the need to improve as a man. Although I am aware that it will not be simple, and that I have a lot of things to make up for, I am prepared to give it a shot, if I may be so fortunate. The crowd seemed to hold its breath along with Katie, as she remained silent for a considerable amount of time. After a long period of time, she finally had a glimpse of the man she had fallen in love with as she looked at Bill, and she looked at him with all her heart. The guy who had made her laugh, who had held her when she was terrified, and who had given her hope, even when the world seemed bleak, was Bill Spencer. Not Dollar Bill, the tycoon, the business juggernaut, but Bill Spencer. While her heart was beating rapidly, she took a big breath. I deeply adore you, Bill. I have always done so, and it is quite likely that I will continue to do so. Love, however, is not sufficient if we are unable to trust one another. You have caused me anguish, and in order to shield myself from that suffering, I have constructed walls. You have to demonstrate to me that I can put my faith in you if we are going to go through with this, if we are truly going to give it another shot." With his eyes fixed on hers, Bill gave a slight nod. "Yes, Katie, I will. It is a solemn oath that I shall proceed with whatever it takes. My expectation is that you will simply bring me back to the past and forget all that has transpired. I am aware that I must work hard to earn it, but I would like to, more than anything else." In her eyes, Katie could feel tears beginning to form. Her desire was to have faith in him. She had a strong desire to think that things might be different this time. However, she was also aware that allowing him to return meant putting her heart in danger once more, which was a terrible prospect. The last thing she said was, "Bill, I need some time," and her voice was shaking. "I need some time to determine whether or not you are truly prepared to make a shift. In addition, I need you to comprehend that it is not going to be simple for me to trust you once more." Bill gave a satisfied nod, a look of unwavering resolve appearing on his face. "Yes, I do comprehend, Katie. Allow me to take as much time as you require. I would like to make it clear that I am present, and that I will not be leaving any time soon." Katie gave his hand a gentle squeeze, her heart aching with a hopeful expectation that perhaps, just possibly, things will be different this time. Bill tried everything in his power to demonstrate to Katie that he was serious about making a change over the course of the subsequent several weeks. By bringing Will up from school, assisting him with his schoolwork, and simply being there in a manner that he had not been in the past, he increased the amount of time he spent with Will. In order to devote his attention to his family, he even took a break from the continual maneuvering that was going on in the corporate world. Katie noticed that her heart was gradually beginning to soften as she observed from a distance. She observed the manner in which Bill interacted with their son, the manner in which he appeared to actually take pleasure in the smaller moments that he had previously ignored. She'd seen the effort that he was making, not only for her but also for himself, and it inspired her to begin to believe that perhaps, just possibly, things might be different this time around. On a certain occasion, Bill extended an invitation to Katie to join him for supper. He had prepared a meal, which was something she had never witnessed him do before, and there they were sitting together, the environment being one of ease and familiarity. During the time that they spent laughing about old recollections, Katie experienced a sense of ease with Bill for the first time in a very long time. Once dinner was over, they sat down on the couch, maintaining a relaxed stillness between each other. With a big smile on his face, Bill stared at Katie. "I want you to know that I am committed to this endeavor for the long haul, Katie, even though I am aware that it will take some time. I adore you, and I long for us to take back our role as a family." With a flood of emotion in her chest, Katie turned her gaze toward him. In spite of the fact that she was aware that there were no assurances, and that they might yet encounter difficulties, she had faith in him at that very time, because she had faith in them. With a sweet voice, she whispered, "I love you too, Bill, and I would like to give it a shot. It is my hope that we will be able to make this work." As Bill's eyes began to well up with emotions, he reached out and drew her into his arms. After a very long period, he experienced hope for the very first time. He was aware that the path that lay ahead would not be simple, but he was prepared to fight for it, for her, for their family, and for the love that had always been there, even when they had lost their way. A new rhythm began to emerge between Katie and Bill as the weeks passed, and they found themselves slipping into it. They were not in a hurry because they were aware of the fact that they were not in a hurry. However, they were taking the time to reconstruct what they had lost. Spending time together as a family included activities such as going to the park with Will, eating supper together, and simply taking pleasure in each other's company. Bill made a concerted effort to be honest with Katie, to share his thoughts and emotions with her in a manner that he had never done from the beginning of their relationship. In spite of the fact that it was not an easy task, he was willing to act in a vulnerable manner, since he was aware that this was the key to regaining their trust. He desired for Katie to perceive that he was serious about altering his behavior, and that he was serious about becoming the guy she deserved to be. Katie, on the other hand, started to dismantle her defenses. Indeed, she had experienced pain, but she was also aware that love was worth taking the chance on. She was able to observe the efforts that Bill was making, and this allowed her to have faith in him and in her. Even though she was aware that they still had a long way to go, she experienced a sense of hope for the first time in a very long time. One evening, when they were sitting on the couch together, Katie turned her gaze to Bill, her heart brimming with happiness. "You know, I think this might actually work," she added in a low voice. "If you think about it." Bill gazed at her, his eyes brimming with sentiment and affection. "Katie, I am certain that it will, because I am not going to give up. This time, not at all." With a grin on her face, Katie gently leaned in to rest her head on his shoulder. She experienced a sense of calm for the very first time in a very long time. At the same time as she was aware that they would be confronted with difficulties, and that there would be times of uncertainty and dread, she was also aware that they had something that was worth fighting for. In addition, both of them were prepared to battle for it this time together. Despite the fact that they were making progress, Bill and Katie were aware that their trip was not yet complete. They were determined to face the challenges together, even though they knew they would encounter challenges and times of uncertainty along the way. Both of them had been hurt by one another, and both of them had made mistakes, but they had also grown and learned from the experiences they had shared. Even though Bill was aware that he had a lot of things to make up for, he was prepared to do so. In addition to being prepared to be the man Katie deserved, he was also prepared to be the father that Will required, and he was finally ready to let go of the need for power and control that had formerly defined him. In the same way, Katie was prepared to forgive, let go of the past, and move on with her development. However, despite the fact that she was aware that love was never simple, and that it required trust and vulnerability, she was willing to take the chance. Simply because, in the end, love was all that mattered. As a result, Bill and Katie were aware that they were prepared for whatever lay ahead of them as they sat together holding the future in their hands. They were prepared to face whatever challenges awaited them, prepared to stand up for one another, and prepared to once again be a family in every sense of the word. Both of them were aware that this was the most daring and wonderful thing of all occurrences.